Have you ever felt the slow, creeping realization that someone is ignoring you? No confrontation, no explanation, just silence. One day, you're laughing together, sharing stories, feeling connected. The next, your messages are left unread. Your presence, once acknowledged, is now met with indifference. You scroll through social media, watching them interact with others, yet your name is nowhere to be found. And then, it hits you. Did I say something wrong? Did I change? Or did I never matter that much to them in the first place? Your mind spirals into an abyss of self-doubt. You replay past conversations, searching for clues. You consider reaching out, just one more message, one more attempt to restore what was lost. But deep down, a more profound question emerges. Does their attention define my worth? Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." Meditations. Perhaps this isn't rejection. Perhaps this is a test, a moment to redefine your self-worth, not by how others treat you, but by how you respond to them. This video will uncover the hidden truths behind being ignored, the Stoic way to handle it, and why it might be the best thing that ever happened to you. Brace yourself. This will change the way you see rejection forever. Part 1. The hidden reasons why people ignore you. There's a certain kind of silence that cuts deeper than words, the silence of being ignored. It's a void that leaves you questioning everything. You wonder what changed. Was it something you said? Did you offend them? Or worse, have you simply become irrelevant in their eyes? The human mind craves explanations, and when one isn't given, we often invent our own. But here's a fundamental truth that Stoicism teaches. When people ignore you, it tells more about them than it does about you. Their actions are not necessarily a reflection of your worth. Instead, they are often a mirror of their own insecurities, their shifting priorities, or their discomfort with change. Once you accept this, the power dynamic shifts. Instead of chasing people for validation, you begin to see their absence as a lesson rather than a loss. Instead of fearing their silence, you start to embrace it. Because in reality, being ignored is not a punishment, it is information. 1. You have changed, and they can't relate anymore. Change is inevitable, but not everyone welcomes it. Most people are drawn to stability, to the comfort of knowing who you are and what to expect from you. The moment you evolve, whether emotionally, intellectually, or socially, you disrupt their perception of you. It's not that they dislike you, they simply don't recognize this new version of you, and that unfamiliarity creates distance. Imagine someone who, for years, shared the same routines, the same conversations, the same habits with their circle of friends. One day, they decide to break free from old patterns. They stop gossiping, they prioritize discipline, they invest in self-improvement. At first, their friends may laugh, dismissing this as a phase, but as the change becomes permanent, discomfort sets in. The conversations that once flowed effortlessly now feel strained. The friend group, once a source of camaraderie, now seems like a cage. It's a pattern that repeats itself across all areas of life. The moment you choose growth, some people will feel like they're losing the version of you that they were comfortable with. And rather than adapt, they retreat. This isn't about you doing something wrong. It's about them struggling to reconcile who you were with who you are becoming. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." This is a call to authenticity. You are not responsible for maintaining an outdated version of yourself just to make others comfortable. Your duty is to pursue what is true for you, even if that means losing people along the way. The Stoics believed that attachment to the past prevents progress, and in this case, attachment to how people once perceived you can hold you back from who you are meant to become. So, if you find yourself growing while others drift away, take it as confirmation that you are on the right path. Evolution requires sacrifice, and sometimes that sacrifice is losing connections that were never meant to last beyond a particular phase of your life. 2. You are no longer useful to them. This is a brutal reality that few people want to acknowledge. Many relationships are transactional. Whether consciously or unconsciously, people gravitate toward those who serve a purpose in their lives. This could be emotional support, career opportunities, social validation, or even a sense of superiority. But the moment that perceived usefulness disappears, so does their attention. Think about the way people interact in professional settings. A person who was once surrounded by admirers when they held a position of power might suddenly find themselves invisible the moment they leave that position. The same happens in personal relationships. A social climber who once sought your friendship might abandon you the second they gain access to someone they perceive as more beneficial to their ambitions. A person who once needed your constant reassurance might move on when they find someone else willing to fill that emotional void. It is not that they ever truly valued you, it is that they valued what you could do for them, and when that benefit disappeared, so did their presence. The Stoic response: never chase validation from people who only valued what you provided, not who you are. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, said, "It is not things that disturb us, but our interpretations of them." The pain of being ignored often comes from the assumption that it means we are no longer important. But the truth is, their withdrawal is merely an indication of their own nature. A person who only stays when there is something to gain is not a person you should wish to keep. Instead of feeling betrayed, consider it a blessing. These people were never truly meant to be part of your long-term journey. They were passengers, not permanent fixtures. Their absence creates space for those who value you, not because of what you offer, but because of who you are at your core. When someone ignores you after they no longer need you, let them go. Do not beg for their attention. Do not shrink yourself in an attempt to regain their interest. Accept the reality of transactional relationships without resentment, and move forward with the knowledge that your worth is not dependent on anyone else's perception of you. At its essence, Stoicism is about mastering perception, understanding that events themselves do not harm us, but rather it is our interpretation of them that shapes our emotional response. Being ignored is not inherently painful. It is the meaning we attach to it that creates suffering. Instead of allowing distance or silence to spiral into self-doubt, shift your perspective. Ask yourself, have I changed, or have they simply failed to evolve alongside me? Was our connection ever built on genuine respect, or was it always conditional? Is their absence truly a loss, or is it in fact an opportunity, clearing space for people who align more deeply with my values and growth? The moment you reframe rejection not as a personal failure, but as a natural part of life's evolution, you reclaim power over your emotions. When you shift your mindset from "why are they ignoring me" to "what is this teaching me?" Zrenia, reclaim power over your emotions. The strongest individuals are those who do not derive their self-worth from external validation. Seneca once said, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials." Consider being ignored as one of those necessary frictions, an experience that polishes your understanding of who truly deserves a place in your life. At the end of the day, those who are meant to walk alongside you in life will never leave you questioning where you stand, and those who do, let them drift away without resistance. Because true strength is found not in being acknowledged, but in knowing that your value remains intact, regardless of who chooses to recognize it. 3. They are struggling with their own issues. Not everything revolves around you. This realization can be both liberating and unsettling, especially when someone close to you suddenly becomes distant. The human mind is wired to seek explanations, and when we don't receive one, we default to the worst-case scenario. They must not care anymore. I must have done something wrong. But here's the truth. Sometimes people pull away not because of you, but because they are fighting battles you cannot see. Imagine a close friend who once shared everything with you. Late-night conversations, inside jokes, a connection so deep it felt unbreakable. And then, without warning, they start withdrawing. They stop answering messages, cancel plans. And when they do respond, their words feel empty, like they are somewhere else entirely. Your first instinct is to wonder if they have lost interest in your friendship. But what if their silence isn't about you at all? What if they are sinking into depression, overwhelmed by personal struggles, or simply trying to survive their own internal chaos? Stoicism teaches us an essential lesson here. Do not assume rejection. Practice compassion and detachment instead. The philosophy reminds us that we do not have control over others, only our interpretation of their actions. Marcus Aurelius advised, "Be tolerant with others and strict with yourself." This means giving people the space to deal with their struggles without taking their withdrawal as an attack on our worth. Instead of demanding explanations or feeling entitled to their presence, shift your focus to understanding. If they return, welcome them without resentment. If they do not, accept their absence with grace. Detachment does not mean you stop caring. It means you stop needing constant validation from others. True emotional resilience comes from recognizing that everyone is carrying burdens unseen to the outside world. The next time someone drifts away, resist the urge to internalize their silence. Instead of thinking, "Why are they ignoring me?" ask yourself, "What might they be going through?" This shift in perception transforms hurt into wisdom, rejection into understanding, and longing into peace. 4. They are intimidated by your growth. Growth is a mirror, and not everyone likes their reflection. When you evolve, whether mentally, emotionally, or professionally, you inadvertently force those around you to confront their own stagnation. Some will be inspired by your progress, using it as motivation to push themselves forward. Others, however, will withdraw, not because they dislike you, but because your success serves as an uncomfortable reminder of everything they have yet to achieve. Picture this. After years of effort, you finally land your dream job. It's a moment of triumph, a milestone you've worked tirelessly for. Naturally, you expect your closest friends to celebrate with you. But instead of genuine excitement, you sense something else. Lukewarm congratulations, an awkward pause before they change the subject, a subtle shift in their energy. "You've changed," they say, but there's a tone of disapproval behind those words. The conversations that once flowed effortlessly now feels strained. The warmth in their eyes is replaced with something colder, something more distant. You begin to notice that every time you share something about your growth, their enthusiasm fades a little more. And then, one day, without any argument or falling out, they simply stop reaching out. At first, you question yourself. Did I become arrogant? Am I leaving them behind? Have I somehow made them feel less important? These thoughts linger because deep down you valued their presence in your life. But this is where Stoicism offers a powerful truth. Success does not change people, it reveals them. A true friend, a true supporter, does not feel threatened by your progress. They do not measure their worth against yours. Instead, they celebrate your achievements as if they were their own. If someone distances themselves when you rise, it is not because you have done something wrong. It is because they are wrestling with their own feelings of inadequacy. Seneca wisely advised, "Associate with those who will make a better man of you." This is not just about finding people who support you, but also about recognizing when to let go of those who do not. If someone cannot handle your success, that is their limitation, not yours. You should not shrink yourself to make them comfortable. You should not minimize your achievements to avoid making others feel insecure. Doing so would be a disservice to yourself and to the person you are becoming. True growth requires the courage to keep moving forward, even when it means leaving certain people behind. It is a difficult truth to accept, but growth is not just about progress. It is also about release. It is about shedding what no longer serves you, including relationships that were only strong when you remained stagnant. This does not mean you should hold resentment. Not everyone is meant to accompany you on every stage of your journey. Some people were only ever meant to be part of a chapter, not the entire story. Let them go, not in anger, but in gratitude for the role they played in your past. And the best thing you can do, keep growing anyway. Keep pushing forward, keep evolving, and keep striving for the life you envision. The people who are truly meant to walk alongside you will never feel diminished by your light. They will only shine brighter beside you. 5. They are testing your reaction. Silence is a game for some. They pull away, not because they are truly done with you, but because they want to see how much you care. They ignore messages, avoid eye contact, and create an atmosphere of uncertainty, waiting to see if you will chase after them. Will you beg for their attention? Will you question your worth? Or will you rise above their need for control? This is not a conscious test for everyone, but for many, it is a form of manipulation. They want to know that they hold power over you, that their absence will make you anxious enough to seek their validation. It is a subtle yet toxic dynamic that plays on human insecurity. And this is precisely where Stoicism offers a powerful countermove: indifference. A true Stoic does not react to such games. When someone deliberately ignores you to provoke a response, the most powerful thing you can do is refuse to play along. Do not send the double text. Do not adjust your behavior in an attempt to win back their attention. Do not let their silence dictate your self-worth. Instead, embrace the wisdom of Epictetus. If someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation. This means the moment you react, you have given them control. The greatest way to maintain power in any situation is to remain unaffected. This does not mean suppressing emotion. It means recognizing that your value does not fluctuate based on someone else's attention. The more you practice emotional detachment, the less susceptible you become to these subtle manipulations. But there's something even deeper at play here. When you stop reacting, you force people to reveal their true intentions. If someone was only interested in you because they could control your emotions, they will lose interest when you stop playing the game. If someone truly cares, their absence will not be a test. It will be temporary, and when they return, it will be genuine. In the end, the person who remains indifferent to petty mind games is the one who holds true power. You do not need to chase, convince, or prove your worth. A person who values you will never make you question where you stand. And a person who treats your presence as disposable, let them see what it feels like when your attention is no longer available. Part 2. How a Stoic handles being ignored. There is a fundamental principle in Stoicism. You cannot control how others treat you, but you can control how you respond. Being ignored, abandoned, or disregarded may feel like a loss, but only if you interpret it that way. A Stoic understands that rejection, like everything in life, is temporary and largely outside of their control. Rather than resisting it, they embrace it, using it as an opportunity for growth and self-mastery. Instead of reacting emotionally, they respond with wisdom. Instead of seeking validation, they cultivate inner strength. True power lies not in forcing others to stay, but in remaining steadfast when they leave. 6. Accept that all relationships are temporary. Most people walk through life with the comforting illusion that relationships, friendships, and human connections are permanent. We grow up believing that those we love today will be with us forever, that bonds built over time will withstand all challenges, and that the people who once cherished us will always remain. But reality tells a different story. People change, priorities shift, and sometimes, without conflict or dramatic betrayal, even the closest relationships simply fade. The Stoics understood this truth deeply, which is why they practiced detachment, not from love or connection, but from the illusion that anything or anyone is guaranteed to stay. Imagine someone desperately clinging to a friendship that is slipping away. They send messages that go unanswered, try to make plans that are repeatedly cancelled, and replay past memories, hoping to rekindle what once was. The more they try to hold on, the more the distance grows, leaving them confused and hurt. They question their worth, wondering what changed and why they are no longer as important in the other person's life. But here's a truth that is difficult to accept. No amount of effort can force someone to stay if they have already moved on internally. Epictetus, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, offered a perspective that is both sobering and liberating. Don't seek for things to happen the way you want them to. Rather, wish for them to happen as they do, and you will be happy. This is a radical shift in thinking. Instead of resisting the natural course of relationships, a Stoic embraces impermanence. They do not see the end of a connection as a tragedy, but as a natural phase of life's ever-changing rhythm. When someone drifts away, they do not chase them, nor do they harbor resentment. Instead, they accept, adapt, and move forward. This mindset does not mean you do not value relationships. Quite the opposite. It means you appreciate them while they last, without becoming dependent on them. You cherish moments without trying to freeze them in time. You love deeply, but do not let that love define your sense of self. You do not demand that people remain the same forever, nor do you attach your happiness to their continued presence. Think of the changing seasons. Winter does not mourn the passing of autumn, and spring does not resist the arrival of summer. Each phase of life brings something new, and just as the leaves fall from trees to make room for new growth, relationships sometimes fade to create space for new experiences, new connections, and new chapters of personal growth. If someone chooses to leave your life, let them, not with bitterness, not with desperation, but with gratitude for what they once brought you. Their absence is not a loss, it is a natural evolution. The next time someone ignores you, instead of clinging to what was, embrace the opportunity to let go of expectations and step into a deeper sense of peace. 7. Stop seeking external validation. One of the greatest traps in life is allowing your self-worth to be determined by how others perceive you. From childhood, we are conditioned to seek approval, praise from parents, validation from teachers, acceptance from peers. Over time, this need for acknowledgement becomes deeply ingrained, and without realizing it, we tie our sense of identity to how we are treated. The moment someone's attention defines your worth, you surrender control over your own sense of self. When they acknowledge you, you feel important. When they ignore you, you feel invisible. It is a dangerous cycle, one that breeds insecurity, desperation, and emotional dependence. The Stoics, however, offer a radical alternative. Build your worth internally, so that no external force can shake it. Instead of craving recognition, cultivate an identity that is immune to praise or rejection. This does not mean becoming indifferent to relationships, but rather learning to exist without needing external approval to feel complete. When your sense of self is rooted in your own principles rather than in the opinions of others, you become truly free. Consider a situation where someone you deeply admire, a mentor, a close friend, or even a romantic partner, suddenly stops acknowledging you. They no longer return your messages, engage in conversation, or show interest in your life. Instinctively, your mind begins to analyze every past interaction. Did I say something wrong? Did I do something to push them away? You start adjusting your behavior, second-guessing yourself, trying to regain their attention. But in this desperate attempt to win back their recognition, you must stop and ask a far more important question. Why does their opinion hold so much power over me? A true Stoic refuses to allow their self-worth to be dictated by external factors. They understand that opinions are fleeting, subjective, and often based on the other person's struggles rather than any inherent flaw within themselves. A person's silence does not mean you are unworthy. A person's withdrawal does not mean you lack value. The moment you internalize this, you reclaim the power you unknowingly handed over to them. Marcus Aurelius offered a profound insight. It is not death that a man should fear, but he should fear never beginning to live. In the same way, we should not fear rejection, but rather we should fear a life spent chasing approval from people whose perceptions are beyond our control. Seeking validation is exhausting because it places your emotional stability in the hands of others. A Stoic, on the other hand, recognizes that true confidence comes from within, unchanging, unwavering, and completely independent of external approval. A powerful exercise in reclaiming self-worth is this. Write down the names of the people who have ignored or distanced themselves from you. Now ask yourself honestly, does their opinion define who you are? If the answer is yes, you have unknowingly placed your self-value in their hands. But the moment you realize that their absence does not diminish your significance, you start regaining control. Their attention, or lack thereof, should not dictate your confidence. This does not mean shutting yourself off from human connection. Stoicism is not about emotional detachment. It is about emotional independence. It is about learning to engage with others while remaining unmoved by their fleeting judgments. When you reach a place where you no longer need acknowledgement to feel whole, you will unlock a level of freedom that most people never achieve. Instead of fearing rejection, embrace it as a test of your self-sufficiency. The next time someone ignores you, observe your reaction. Do you feel insecure? Do you feel the need to prove your worth? Or do you recognize that their actions say more about them than about you? If someone distances themselves, let them. If they return, welcome them without resentment. But never again allow anyone's presence or absence to dictate your inner peace. 8. Transform isolation into strength. For many, being ignored or left out leads to feelings of loneliness. They equate solitude with failure, believing that if people are no longer drawn to them, they must have lost their value. But history proves otherwise. Many of the greatest minds, philosophers, writers, leaders, have thrived in solitude, using isolation not as a punishment, but as an opportunity for transformation. The Stoics were among them. Seneca, one of the most influential Stoic thinkers, was exiled from Rome. Stripped of his political influence and forced into isolation, he could have succumbed to despair. Instead, he used that time to write some of his most profound works, influencing generations long after his death. His example teaches us a valuable lesson. Being alone is not a weakness. It is an invitation to grow. When someone ignores you, instead of seeing it as a rejection, see it as a redirection. Ask yourself, what can I do with this time? How can I use this space to become stronger, wiser, and more independent? Isolation, when used correctly, becomes a period of deep self-reflection and self-improvement. Many of the most successful individuals have experienced seasons of solitude before achieving greatness. Artists, entrepreneurs, thinkers, they all know that the most powerful work often happens in silence. Instead of filling the void with distractions, they embrace it, allowing their thoughts to mature, their goals to sharpen, and their vision to become unshakable. Rejection is not the end of the world. It is the beginning of a new chapter, one in which you no longer seek fulfillment through others, but through your own journey. Instead of lamenting over who has left, focus on who you are becoming. A person who can stand alone, yet remain whole, is truly unstoppable. Part 3. Practical Stoic exercises to deal with rejection. Seneca once said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." This profound truth reveals why rejection, being ignored or feeling unacknowledged, causes so much unnecessary suffering. The real pain does not come from the act itself, it comes from our interpretation of it. We construct elaborate mental narratives, turning simple silence into stories of inadequacy, failure, and worthlessness. But what if we could change our perception and eliminate that suffering entirely? The Stoics believed that external events have no real power over us, only our reactions do. And they developed powerful mental exercises to train the mind to see rejection not as something painful, but as something neutral, or even beneficial. If you have ever felt crushed by being ignored, if you have ever obsessed over someone's silence, these 3 practical Stoic exercises will help you detach from suffering and reclaim your inner strength. 9. The view from above. Meditation. Rejection has a way of consuming our thoughts, making the absence of one person's attention feel like an unbearable weight. When someone ignores us, it's as if our entire world contracts, shrinking down to the narrow space where our emotions, anxieties, and insecurities reside. Our mind becomes a relentless detective, analyzing every interaction, searching for meaning in their silence, trying to decode what went wrong. But this obsession is an illusion, a distortion of reality created by our own attachment to external validation. The Stoics understood that when something feels overwhelming, the solution is not to resist it, but to rise above it. One of the most powerful Stoic exercises for gaining perspective is the view from above meditation. This practice teaches us to zoom out, stepping away from the narrow confines of our personal struggles to see the bigger picture. Imagine yourself standing on a high mountaintop, looking down at the vast landscape below. From this height, your problems already feel smaller. But don't stop there. Expand your perspective even further. Visualize yourself rising higher and higher until you are floating above the earth itself. Look down at the world beneath you. See the continents, the oceans, the millions of cities bustling with people, each person living their own life, experiencing their own triumphs and struggles. Amidst this vastness, does the fact that one person ignored you truly matter? Marcus Aurelius himself practiced this technique daily. In meditations, he constantly reminded himself that all human experiences, pleasure, pain, success, rejection, are fleeting when viewed from a cosmic perspective. He understood that our worries feel enormous only because we are too close to them. When we gain distance, when we see ourselves as a tiny part of something infinitely larger, we realize that no single rejection, no fleeting disappointment, no moment of being ignored has the power to define us. The next time you find yourself consumed by someone's silence, pause, close your eyes, picture yourself rising higher and higher. Watch as cities become mere specks, people turn into tiny dots, and your personal worries dissolve into insignificance. In the vastness of the universe, one person's attention, or lack of it, has no real power over you unless you allow it to. This shift in perspective does not minimize your emotions. It liberates you from them. It reminds you that you are more than any single relationship, any single rejection, or any temporary setback. When you rise above your problems, they lose their grip on you. Instead of reacting with pain or self-doubt, you learn to observe, accept, and move forward with calm detachment. Ultimately, the view from above meditation is not just about rejection. It is about cultivating mental clarity, emotional resilience, and a deeper understanding of life's impermanence. The higher you rise, the less power external circumstances will have over you. And when you reach that point, you will realize a fundamental truth. Your worth has never depended on someone else's acknowledgement. It has always been yours to define. 10. The last time reflection. If today were the last time you would ever see someone, would their silence still upset you? We often live as if time is infinite, assuming that we will always have another opportunity, another day to mend broken relationships, another chance to seek closure, another moment to demand explanations. But what if that assumption is wrong? What if today were the last time you would ever hear from the person who is ignoring you? Would you spend your remaining moments feeling angry, confused, or desperate for their attention? Or would you choose to let go, accepting the reality that all things, both joyful and painful, must come to an end? One of the most profound Stoic principles is memento mori, the practice of remembering that life is fleeting. Nothing is guaranteed, not the people we love, not the relationships we treasure, not even our own existence. Seneca, one of the great Stoic philosophers, wrote, "You are living as if destined to live forever. Your own frailty never occurs to you." He reminds us that most people waste their energy clinging to things that are, by nature, temporary. We hold grudges, we chase validation, we dwell on things that, in the grand scheme of life, do not truly matter. Now, imagine this scenario. Someone you deeply care about has suddenly withdrawn. They no longer respond to your messages. They no longer acknowledge your presence. You feel ignored, abandoned, perhaps even betrayed. The thoughts begin to spiral. Why are they acting this way? Did I do something wrong? Should I reach out again? But then a deeper realization strikes you. What if this is my final moment with them? Would you spend that moment resenting their silence, or would you choose gratitude for the time you once shared? This shift in perspective is powerful. Instead of seeing their absence as a personal attack, you begin to recognize it as part of life's natural cycle. People come and go. Some departures are sudden, others are gradual. But every connection, no matter how significant, is impermanent. When you fully embrace this truth, you stop holding on to things that are already gone. The next time someone ignores you, instead of reacting with frustration or sadness, ask yourself, if this were the last time I would ever interact with them, how would I want to feel? Would you choose to waste your energy in resentment, or would you choose to release them with peace? This exercise is not about denying emotions. It is about mastering them. It is about recognizing that expecting permanence leads to suffering, while accepting impermanence leads to freedom. When you let go of the illusion that people will always be there, you stop fearing loss. And when you stop fearing loss, you start living with deeper appreciation, greater presence, and a profound sense of inner peace. Ultimately, rejection, silence, and absence are just reminders of life's transient nature. Instead of resisting them, use them as an opportunity to practice acceptance, detachment, and gratitude. When you view every interaction as potentially the last, you naturally prioritize peace over conflict, wisdom over insecurity, and presence over regret. 11. The daily journaling practice. Self-awareness is the foundation of emotional resilience. Many people suffer not because of what happens to them, but because they fail to understand their own reactions. They feel ignored, rejected, abandoned, but they never question why these feelings arise or how they can control them. This is where Stoic journaling becomes an essential tool. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoic emperors, wrote in his private diary every day. His book Meditations, originally just personal reflections, has become one of the most influential philosophical works in history. Why? Because he used writing as a way to train his mind, control his emotions, and master his thoughts. If rejection or being ignored deeply affects you, consider starting a Stoic journal, a simple yet powerful tool for cultivating emotional resilience. Each night, take a few moments to reflect and write down 3 key questions. Who ignored me today? Acknowledge the event without attaching emotions to it, seeing it as a neutral occurrence rather than a personal attack. How did I react? Observe your emotional response with honesty. Did you feel anger, sadness, or insecurity? Did you dwell on it longer than necessary, allowing it to take up space in your mind? What could I have done differently? Reflect on whether you could have responded with greater detachment, shifted your perspective, or redirected your energy towards something more constructive. By consistently engaging in this practice, you train your mind to approach rejection with wisdom rather than emotional turmoil, gradually freeing yourself from the need for external validation. This exercise is not about suppressing emotions, it is about understanding them. By writing daily, you create distance between yourself and your emotions. You start seeing patterns in your behavior. You realize when your mind is amplifying suffering unnecessarily. Over time, this habit rewires your thinking, helping you detach from external validation and focus on inner strength. A Stoic journal is like a mental gym. Every time you write, you train your mind to become stronger, more rational, and less reactive. Over time, you will notice that rejection no longer shakes you. Someone ignoring you will feel as insignificant as a passing cloud. Try it for a week. Observe how your mind changes, and the next time someone ignores you, instead of reacting emotionally, write it down, analyze, detach, move forward. Throughout this journey into Stoic resilience, we have uncovered 3 fundamental truths about rejection and being ignored. First, we explored the hidden reasons behind why people distance themselves, revealing that their silence often reflects their own struggles, insecurities, or changing priorities, not our worth. Second, we examined how a true Stoic responds to rejection, not with desperation, but with acceptance, self-sufficiency, and a detachment from external validation. Finally, we engaged in practical Stoic exercises, powerful mental tools that shift perspective, break emotional attachment, and cultivate an unshakable sense of inner peace. When we integrate these lessons, we stop fearing rejection and start seeing it as an opportunity for growth, self-mastery, and ultimate freedom. Now, as we move into the conclusion, let us embrace one final truth. Being ignored is not a curse. It is a test of how much power we truly have over ourselves. Rejection is redirection. Being ignored is freedom. It may not feel like it in the moment, but every time someone chooses to walk away, they are clearing a path for you to step into something greater. The moment you stop chasing acknowledgement, you reclaim your power. You are no longer at the mercy of someone else's attention. You become the master of your own worth. Stoic philosophy reminds us that external events hold no real power over us. What matters is how we interpret them, how we respond, and ultimately, how we rise above them. If someone chooses to ignore you, let them. Their decision does not diminish your value. Instead of questioning your worth, embrace the space their absence creates. Use it as an opportunity to grow, to strengthen your resilience, and to deepen your understanding of yourself. Every rejection, every silent goodbye is a chance to practice detachment, not from love, not from connection, but from the illusion that your worth depends on anyone else's validation. Take a moment to reflect on what we've discussed today. When people ignore you, it often has little to do with you and everything to do with them. True strength lies in accepting this without resentment. A Stoic does not beg for attention or fear being forgotten. Instead, they walk forward with quiet confidence, knowing that their value remains unchanged. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever been ignored? How did you handle it? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your story might help someone else on their journey. And if this message resonated with you, like this video, Share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more Stoic wisdom. I'll leave you with this final thought. The people who truly value you will never leave you wondering where you stand, and those who do, let them go. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." Meditations. Now here's something to think about. What would your life look like if you no longer depended on the approval of others? Imagine that freedom and take the first step toward it today.